I did want to share this social media post from the Democrats saying that oversight Dems have received new emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that raise serious questions about Donald Trump and his knowledge of Epstein's horrific crimes. Read them for yourself. It's time to end this cover-up and release the files. This is some file footage of the late Jeffrey Epstein.
And if you think Trump is still running the show in Washington, what just happened will completely change your mind. Congress just told Donald Trump absolutely not on his latest power grab, and he is losing his mind over it. We are talking about a bipartisan vote to block Trump from forcing a nationwide voter ID mandate through executive order alone.
You ought to have voter ID. You ought to insist on it. You ought to insist on it. Can you imagine? In California, they not only don't have voter ID, but if an official at the voting booths, which they don't have, by the way, because it's all mail, if an official, a voting official, even asks somebody for voter ID, sir, would like to see your identification. Do you come from our country? They put him in jail for tampering with the election.
This is not normal. This is a president who thought he could rewrite election laws from his phone, and Congress finally told him to sit down. Let us break down exactly what happened because the details make this even more serious. On February 13th, Trump posted on Truth Social that he was going to issue an executive order shortly to impose nationwide voter ID requirements before the 2026 midterm elections. And in that same post, he admitted that the legislation to do this was not going to pass.
They're very embarrassed when they say, we want voter ID, voter identification. The only reason somebody doesn't want that is because they want to cheat. Our elections are crooked as hell. And you can not only win elections over that, and not only win future elections, but you'll win every debate because the public is really angry about it. And you ought to pass the SAFE Act, or whatever you're going to call it. Are we going to SAVE Act or the Save America Act? I think we're going to change the name a little bit. You're going to put that up for a vote?
So he basically said the quiet part out loud. He admitted Congress was not going to pass his voter ID law, so he was going to do it himself anyway. Then he went on this rant about how Democrats refuse to vote for voter ID because they want to continue to cheat in elections. That is his framing. Anyone who opposes his voting rules must be trying to steal elections. Never mind that voter ID laws are controversial because they make it harder for students, elderly people, and low-income folks who do not have easy access to government IDs to vote. To Trump, it is always about cheating.
The House of Representatives just passing a bill moments ago that would change how Congress certifies presidential elections. It passed mostly along party lines, with 9 Republicans siding with Democrats. And if you're going, well, wait a second, why does this matter? The whole point of this bill is to prevent another January 6th from happening again. And so when you look at the vote totals here, what's interesting is that the 9 Republicans who crossed party lines here, they're not returning to Congress next year because they either lost their primary or they're retiring.
But here is where it gets interesting. Congress did not just ignore him. They actually voted to block him. And this was not some party line thing where Democrats barely squeaked out a win. This was bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats both looked at Trump's plan and said, absolutely not. You cannot just rewrite election rules by yourself. And that almost never happens anymore. So the fact that it did tells you how serious this is. Now, why did Congress finally decide to push back? Part of it is timing. This vote happened right after a number of other situations where Trump tried to bypass Congress and got blocked.
My Democratic colleagues and I have come to the floor to warn against President Trump's military operations in South and Central America. We pointed out that his boat strike campaign was strategically incoherent, legally questionable, and ultimately not about narco trafficking at all. We have argued that the administration's shifting legal justifications, refusal to give Congress straight answers.
Literally days before this, the Senate advanced a bipartisan war powers resolution because Trump launched a military raid in Venezuela without congressional authorization. Senator Jack Reed put out a statement saying Congress needed to reassert its constitutional authority and calling Trump's actions a profound constitutional failure. That is, Senate speak for this is unacceptable, and we cannot let it keep happening.
The Supreme Court of the United States has struck down President Trump's ability to use tariffs IEPA, they said, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. This is a judgment from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. I'm reading through this decision right now, which just came out literally in the last couple of moments here about the president's tariff authority. Worth noting that this is coming out just before he's set to go in front, of course, of Congress.
Then the same week, the Supreme Court ruled against Trump on his tariff powers. Trump had been trying to impose what he called reciprocal tariffs, basically creating new taxes on imports because he did not like other countries' trade policies. And the court said tariffs are taxes and only Congress can levy taxes. That is literally in the Constitution. The ruling was 6-3, and even some of Trump's own appointees voted against him. Legal experts called it Trump reaching the limit of his power, which is a polite way of saying he was told to sit down.
President's tweets this morning are putting a whole new spin on the tariffs he announced last week. Let me explain. Here's what the president tweeted just a few minutes ago. We have large trade deficits with Mexico and Canada. NAFTA, which is under renegotiation right now, has been a bad deal for USA. Massive relocation of companies and jobs. Tariffs on steel and aluminum will only come off if new and fair NAFTA agreement is signed.
So Congress is watching all of this, the Venezuela raid, the tariff overreach, Trump announcing policies on Truth Social like he is passing laws from his phone, and they are realizing that if they do not push back now, they are basically irrelevant. Because Trump has spent the last year acting like Congress is just a suggestion. He tried to cap interest rates by posting about it on social media. He tried to change trade policy by tweet, and now he wants to rewrite voting rules the same way. And Congress finally said, okay, this has to stop. But here is the thing, Trump does not care, not at all. His response to getting blocked was not to back down or negotiate or work with Congress like a normal president. His response was to go on Truth Social and rage post about how everyone who voted against him is a traitor and Democrats are trying to steal elections. And he did not just complain, he hinted that he is going to issue the executive order anyway. Which brings us to the big question, can he actually do that? Can Trump just sign an executive order and force nationwide voter ID on the country? The short answer is no. The long answer is probably not, but he is definitely going to try, and it will be a mess. Here is why. Elections in the United States are run by states, not the federal government. The Constitution gives states the power to set the times, places, and manner of elections. Congress can regulate federal elections, but the president does not have unilateral power to change voting rules. That is not a thing. An executive order cannot override state election laws, and it definitely cannot create new requirements for who gets to vote. But Trump does not care about that. He has been governing by executive order for his entire second term, and his strategy is basically sign it, let someone sue, fight it in court, and maybe by the time it gets resolved, he will have already gotten what he wanted. We have seen this with tariffs, with immigration, with trade policy. He just does things and dares people to stop him. And sometimes it works because the legal process is slow. And by the time a court rules, the damage is already done. So if Trump issues this voter ID executive order, what happens? States sue immediately. Civil rights groups sue. It goes to federal court. It probably gets blocked by a judge within days. And then it is tied up in appeals for months. And in the meantime, we are heading into the 2026 midterms with total chaos about who gets to vote and what the rules are, which honestly might be the point. Because even if Trump loses in court, he gets to spend the entire election season claiming the system is rigged and Democrats are cheating. And the only reason he might lose is because they would not let him fix elections. His base eats that up. Trump's entire political brand at this point is, everyone is out to get me, the system is rigged, I am the only one fighting for you. And every time Congress or the courts block him, it just reinforces that narrative. So even when he loses, he kind of wins because he gets to play the victim and fire up his supporters. But here is what is different this time. This is not just about Trump's ego or his political brand. This is about the actual mechanics of democracy. Voting rules determine who gets to participate in elections. And if Trump successfully rewrites those rules right before a midterm where his party might lose, that is not just norm breaking, that is election manipulation. And the fact that Congress is finally pushing back, the fact that even some Republicans are saying no to this tells you how dangerous they think it is. Now, Trump's response has been to attack those Republicans publicly. He is calling them RINOs. He is threatening to primary them. He is saying they are helping Democrats cheat, and that is going to have consequences because we are about to head into primary season for the 2026 midterms. Any Republican who voted against Trump on this is going to face a Trump-backed challenger who runs on the idea that they would have let Trump save elections. So even though Congress blocked him this time, Trump is making sure there is a political price to pay. And that is the part that should worry everyone, because the message Trump is sending to his party is, if you do not let me do whatever I want, I will destroy your career. And the more Republicans who get primaried out for standing up to him, the fewer people are going to be willing to do it next time. Which means the next time Trump tries something like this, and there will be a next time, Congress might not have the votes to stop him. Let us talk about the bigger pattern here. This is not just about one vote or one tantrum. This is about Trump systematically trying to grab powers that the Constitution does not give him. And we are watching in real time to see if Congress, the courts, or anyone else is actually going to stop him. The answer so far has been sometimes, and that is the problem. Because every time Trump gets told no, he just tries again in a different way. We have already seen it with tariffs, with military action, with trade policy. He pushes and pushes until either he gets what he wants or everyone gets so tired of fighting him that they just let it slide. And if that happens with voting rules, if Trump actually manages to rewrite who gets to vote right before an election where his party might lose, that is not just a political fight anymore. That is a full-blown constitutional crisis. Because at that point, you are not just arguing about policy. You are arguing about whether elections mean anything at all. The timing of all this is critical. We are heading into the 2026 midterms, and Trump is panicking. He knows his party could lose the House or the Senate in November. And if that happens, his entire second-term agenda is dead. No more executive orders rubber-stamped by Congress. No more judicial appointments, no more passing whatever laws he wants. So he is trying to lock in advantages now. Stricter voter ID rules, suppression tactics, anything that makes it harder for people who do not support him to vote. And he is framing it all as election integrity and stopping cheating. But really, it is just about keeping power. CNN reported that Trump has been obsessed with the midterms for months, even floating ideas about postponing them or changing the rules. And this voter ID push was supposed to be part of that strategy, make it harder to vote, claim any Democratic wins are fraud, and set up 2028 by saying the system is rigged. But Congress just threw a wrench in that plan, and Trump is furious because now he has to actually compete in a fair election. So what happens next? Trump is probably going to issue the executive order anyway. He has already hinted at it, and his whole brand is, I do what I want and dare you to stop me. So expect an executive order in the next few weeks. Expect immediate lawsuits from states and civil rights groups. Expect the whole thing to end up in federal court where it will probably get blocked. But in the meantime, we are going to have months of chaos about voting rules, right, as we head into the midterms. And that chaos benefits Trump. Even if he loses in court, he gets to spend the entire campaign season talking about how the system is rigged and Democrats are cheating and the courts are biased. His base believes that, and it fires them up, and it gives him an excuse if Republicans lose. So win or lose legally, Trump gets something out of this fight. But here is what gives me hope. Congress actually pushed back. For the first time in a long time, Republicans and Democrats worked together to tell Trump no on something that really matters. And yes, Trump is going to punish them for it. And yes, some of those Republicans are probably going to lose their seats, but they did it anyway. They looked at Trump trying to rewrite election rules and said, this is too far. We cannot let this happen. And that matters because every time Trump tries to grab power and someone stops him, it sets a precedent. It shows that checks and balances still exist, that the Constitution still means something, that not everyone is willing to just roll over and let him do whatever he wants. The more often that happens, the harder it gets for Trump to claim unlimited authority. Now, do not get me wrong, this fight is far from over. Trump is going to keep pushing. Congress might cave next time, and we are probably headed for a constitutional crisis before the midterms. But this vote was a line in the sand, and we are about to find out if that line holds or if Trump just smashes right through it. The bottom line is simple. Trump tried to force nationwide voter ID through executive order alone. Congress voted in a bipartisan manner to block him. Trump responded with an all-caps meltdown on Truth Social, attacking his own party and threatening primaries. This is part of a pattern where Trump keeps trying to grab powers he does not have, and institutions keep pushing back. But every time they push back, Trump figures out new ways to test the limits. And with the midterms approaching, the stakes could not be higher. Because if Trump actually succeeds in rewriting voting rules, the democracy we think we have might not exist much